It's been a very busy week in the NFL world, which of course makes it a busy week in Dynasty Fantasy Football. We've got a lot of free agent signings to go over the next several videos that I do, and a lot of it has to do with the running backs in particular, because all the wide receivers who are worth anything really got franchise tagged before free agency even started. But we've got to give some updated Dynasty wide receiver rankings. We're going through the top 20 Dynasty wide receiver rankings today in this video. And of course, this is a new channel exclusively for Dynasty, so please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support if you get value from this video today. Let's go ahead and dive into it. So the first tier is going to be made up of Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Look, the last time I did these rankings, they were at the top two, and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, nothing is happening to them that's really worth noting. And I certainly believe that they are the top two guys in Dynasty. That's no slight to number 3, CeeDee Lamb, but Jamar Chase, I've gotten questions on him. Is he really worth this price? I believe yes, he is. Jamar Chase is in a situation in Cincinnati where he is going to be the number one, regardless of if T. Higgins sticks or not. And at the time of this filming, T. Higgins has requested a trade. Now, by the time you're watching it, he may have already been traded or dealt, or he may just be coming back to Cincinnati on a 1-year franchise tag deal. Either way, it doesn't affect Justin Jefferson, and it doesn't affect Jamar Chase's long-term outlook, being at 24 years old. And Justin Jefferson, obviously quarterback instability hits him all of a sudden. 24 years old, though, doesn't really matter. He's averaging 16.8 fantasy points per game in an injured season. Justin Jefferson, I don't care who they get at quarterback. I would imagine they're probably going to draft somebody. I don't think that Justin Jefferson is going to be in a bad position in the long term. So he's still at number 1. And CeeDee Lamb is at number 3. And CeeDee Lamb's just in a position where I think that he's just not his fault at all. He's 24 as well. But with Dak Prescott, I don't know how much longer they're going to continue to ride this wheel with him. This is pretty far into the future looking stuff, because as of today, like, he's a top guy as well. He's definitely top 3 for 2024 fantasy football. And you can catch those rankings on the main channel, Football Fanalysts Network. But CeeDee Lamb is just in a position where, from a long-term perspective, I don't know what their commitment is going to be like to their head coach and to their quarterback, which will create some instability. But he's at 3 because he's a very good player. He's great. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 4 and Puka Nacua at 5. So I remember the first time I did these rankings about a month ago, I got so much flack for putting Puka Nacua in like the 12 to 15 range. And honestly, I get it. Like, I was wrong about that. I was looking too far ahead to like when Matt Stafford was going to be gone and what is the succession plan. I still have concerns with that, but I'll get into him after I get into Amon-Ra. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 24 years old, is the focal point of the offense. And not necessarily that he's in a pass-first offense, but he's this focal point of the passing offense. 10 targets per game last year and 17 fantasy points per game on 10 touchdowns. He's an elite wide receiver, an elite separator, and he's playing with a quarterback who's very accurate and good with his deep balls. Jared Goff with Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to continue to be money for years to come. And Puka Nacua at number 5. Look, like I said, the concern here with Puka, who's only 22 years old, is what's going to happen when Matt Stafford eventually retires within the next 2 years, I would bet. It makes it uncertain for me because they don't have a clear succession plan right now. Now, they don't necessarily have to. Like, if he retires in 2 years, they could draft a guy next year or in 2 years. This is a good quarterback draft, though. I wish they could get a guy, but I'm sure they'll figure something out, and Puka Nacua will continue to dominate because he's the number 1. That number 1 wide receiver spot, that was initially Cooper Kupp's. Yeah, Puka Nacua said, move out of the way. I'm taking over. I'm the young buck. I'm taking this receiving core over. And he certainly did that. So I don't have any confidence issues when it comes to Puka Nacua, the player, and really what his dynasty value will be like for the next year or 2. A.J. Brown at 6 and Garrett Wilson at 7. A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson, they shift down because of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Puka rising over them from the last time I ranked them. And A.J. Brown is just in a situation where I don't trust Philadelphia right now. I'm believing in them. I'm banking on them doing it again. But am I 100% confident? I'm not. There was turmoil in that locker room during that last half of the season. How else can you explain the collapse? Jalen Hurts also regressed in 2023. Does he rebound? I'm banking on it, but I'm not certain. I'm not certain of it. A.J. Brown is a guy that wants to get his targets, and they also have a very good number 2, Devonta Smith, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. I'm uncertain. I'm uncertain about this one. I like A.J. Brown. He's getting to be 27 years old. Of course, I'd want him in Dynasty, but would I rather have Puka Nacua? Yes. Would I rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown? Yes. So that's why he's here at 6. And then Garrett Wilson, obviously the guy who is... he's in this position at 7, and so many people questioned it last time I had him here. And I understand the reasons why. Like, he hasn't lived up to what we thought he could be in fantasy. But again, I don't think it's a fault of his own. This guy has just dealt with the biggest circus of quarterbacks I think we've seen in the NFL over the last 2 years. Atlanta makes an argument, but the Jets are... it's just a disaster. So I'm banking on the Aaron Rodgers breakout season in 2024, which will raise his dynasty value probably to top 5 if he does have a good breakout season. And obviously, like, Garrett Wilson's still so young at 23 years old that it's like he's got such a bright future ahead of him because he's so good. And he's had over 1,000 yards receiving in the 2 seasons he's played in the NFL with that garbage at quarterback. So give me a stable quarterback with Aaron Rodgers. I believe in Garrett Wilson. Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 8 and Tyreek Hill at number 9. So obviously, 2 guys that are on the complete opposite ends of their career. Marvin Harrison Jr. coming into the NFL at 21 years old. Now, he has not been drafted, obviously. We're still sitting here in March. And the likelihood is that he's going to be, I think at this point, the place I have him pegged is Arizona. Arizona looks like they're going to be the first team to have really the opportunity to take him. Or all of them will have an opportunity, but all 3 of the top 3 teams look like they're going quarterback. So Arizona, assuming they don't draft Kyler Murray's replacement, I can't imagine they would. They're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. And that's going to be a great fit in my opinion. Not only do I like the fit, I love the player. Marvin Harrison Jr. scores so well in my Dynasty prospect model. Early breakout sophomore year, film breakdown A+. One of the few prospects over the last 5 years who's gotten an A+ for me on the film breakdown grade. College target share is decent, and he's going to be a first-round pick. This guy is going to be special in fantasy football, and that's why I've got him ranked here at number 8 already. And if you want to see who the best picks are going to be in your Dynasty rookie drafts and who the best values are going to be, make sure to stay tuned to get my 2024 Dynasty rookie draft guide. And at number 9 with Tyreek Hill, I made this argument when I first ranked the Dynasty receivers about a month ago. Look, if I'm looking at Tyreek Hill versus a guy like Chris Olave or a guy like Jalen Waddle or Brandon Ayuk, would I rather have the promise of getting those guys to above 12 to 13 fantasy points per game? Or would I rather have the guy I know is going to give me 18, 19, 20 fantasy points per game over the next 2 years? Because that's what we're looking at here. Tyreek Hill is 30 years old, and he already said last offseason he's planning to retire here in the next 2 years. I'd rather have 2 years of elite production than 8 years of solid production, but not elite. I'll take the elite production over solid production over the next several years. Similar argument to Christian McCaffrey. Number 10, Nico Collins. At number 11, Chris Olave. Nico Collins is one of the biggest risers along with Puka Nacua. This offseason, I think that Nico Collins, his dynasty value, I don't even think it's, in the eyes of other people, where it is with me. I think Nico Collins is an elite dynasty asset. Nico Collins is coming into 2024, 24 years old, on a contract year, coming off a massive season. Almost 15 fantasy points per game, almost 90 yards per game, and it's the wide receiver 1. It's not Tank Dell, it's Nico Collins. Just based on numbers alone, it's Nico Collins. And based on the prototypical size, it is Nico Collins. Don't let anyone fool you. And listen, when you have a CJ Stroud, the ultimate reason why Nico Collins is at 10 and he rose up this high is because of CJ Stroud. That's the reason. When you get a quarterback this good on your team, your dynasty value, if you're a good receiver, is going to accelerate. That's the reason. If Chris Olave at 11 had CJ Stroud, he'd be top 5. Because I think he's more talented than Nico Collins. But Chris Olave has Derek Carr. And they have no plan at quarterback right now. So he's going to continue to give you solid production. And he's still young. Like, they can turn things around. He's 23. But as of right now, like, it's hard for me to move him much higher because there's no out in sight. There's no like, oh, well, we've got decent draft capital. We could get our guy. No, they're in the middle of the pack. They can't draft a quarterback unless they trade up. Maybe they do that and it would be great. But as of right now, there's no out. And that's why Olave's behind Nico at 10. At number 11 and 10. Jalen Waddle at 12 and Brandon Ayuk at 13. So these two guys, Waddle's the clear number 2 on his team. Ayuk, we could argue if he's the number 1 or the number 2. Based on targets per game, he's the number 1. Based on total amount of opportunities per game, he's the number 2. So Jalen Waddle at 12, people need to realize how disappointing his fantasy season was in 2023. It was so disappointing. He's relying on big plays. This guy is not a target hog. He's not a great separator. He's an elite downfield option. And unless he's getting in the end zone, you're going to see seasons like 2023. Tyreek Hill being there obviously lowers his upside for the time being. But even at 25 years old, like, he's not a young wide receiver as young as guys like Olave and as young as guys like, Garrett Wilson. Like, he's not in that category. So I like Jalen Waddle. I think he's a very good asset. Number 1, he's a top 12 wide receiver in Dynasty for me. So he's a number 1 wide receiver. But I would prefer guys like that over him just because I don't think that he's going to ever develop and evolve into a target hog. Brandon Ayuk at 13, we're still waiting on what happens in San Fran. And again, I'm filming this on Monday night, so maybe you're seeing this on Friday, and maybe they signed him to a long-term deal. Maybe it happened, and it would be great. He would be probably around this range. He might move a little higher than Olave. He might move behind Nico at 11, if that happens. Ayuk is just a very good player. Like, elite route runner, is the wide receiver 1 in that room. But Deebo Samuel being there will continue to take touches away one way or another. They're going to run the guy, they're going to throw it to the guy. And he's more capable of big plays than Brandon Ayuk is. Brandon Ayuk, better wide receiver. Deebo Samuel, probably a better overall football player. In fantasy football, I'll take Brandon Ayuk any day of the freaking week at 25 years old. Devonta Smith at 14 and Michael Pittman at 15. So Devonta Smith is kind of in the Jalen Waddle category where he's 25 years old, which is not old, but like, he's not at the beginning of his career anymore, and he's stuck behind an elite wide receiver. AJ Brown is also much younger than Tyreek Hill as well, so there's no imminent departure of AJ Brown. That's not the case here. So he's stuck behind him. Unless he goes somewhere else when his contract runs out as a rookie. I can't imagine they'll want to get rid of him because he's so elite of a number 2 option. And he's a great fantasy option when he gets opportunities. But the problem is, and it has been since he's been connected with AJ, is that there's times where AJ just hogs the targets and Devontae gets like 3. So he's going to continue to provide dry spells for you as long as he's behind AJ. And then Michael Pittman Jr. recently signed an extension with the Indianapolis Colts and is officially a Colt at good money. I really like the Colts. I am so big on the Indianapolis Colts for fantasy purposes. Anthony Richardson, I think, develops into an all-star quarterback this year. Dude's an elite runner, obviously, but this guy can throw through a friggin' brick wall. They just need to clean up the accuracy, and I think with the offensive coach, Shane Steichen, they will. He turned Jalen Hurts into what he became, which was never very accurate, but he totally cleaned up his game to become more accurate. I'm banking on him doing the same with Anthony Richardson, and that in turn is going to benefit Michael Pittman Jr. in the long run. I was never a big Pittman Jr. guy before they got Richardson, but when they got Richardson, I became very pro Michael Pittman. And by that time, a lot of people were turned off of him. And we'll see if that's the same case at number 16 with Drake London. Drake London is in a very similar start to his career as Pittman was. Now, obviously, he's a much higher drafted, much higher touted prospect than Pittman, but Drake London has had the same issues that Pittman had at the beginning. Drake London has dealt with a circus of quarterbacks and just an anemic offense. And it's not his fault, but that's just the reality. He had 2 touchdowns in 2023. That's just bad. I mean, there's just no other way to put this one. I really want it to work out with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is 35 years old, though, coming off an Achilles tear. I get it. Like, it compared to what they've been dealing with, it's like a savior thing. Everybody's rejoicing this move. I want to believe in it, but let's not forget the facts. 35 years old, coming off an Achilles tear, and was never an athlete before that. So this guy is a statue at quarterback. And unless the offensive line is very, very good, like top 10, there could be still issues here, and that could lead to issues with Drake London. Of course, I think Drake London will have his breakout year, and that's why he rose back into the top 20 in Dynasty, because he's still so freaking young. Dude's not even... Drake London's not even 23 yet. Lots of faith in the player. Very shaky at quarterback. I still do believe personally. 17 and 18. Jordan Addison and Rashid Rice. The 2 rookies that are coming off very, very impressive years. They were the 2 best rookies this year. And Jordan Addison was a first rounder. Rashid Rice was a third rounder. And they're both on offenses that are high-flying pass-first offenses. So they're going to be in good shape. Jordan Addison is obviously in less stable position because of no Kirk Cousins anymore. But again, it goes back to what I said about JJ. I think that they're going to draft a quarterback and just build on this young nucleus they have. That's a positive thing. Addison is explosive. The dude is capable of big plays. And he is in perfect position at number 2 behind JJ because he's never going to get double coverage. Unless Justin Jefferson is out for injury. Rashid Rice is in a more, I would say, delicate situation. Because I have not made this secret. I do believe that Kansas City, one way or another, will find a way to make Rashid Rice their number 2. I don't think he's built for a number 1 position. I think he's going to be a really good number 2. But I was initially thinking they would go free agent signing. Well, they can't do that because there's no one worth adding as a number 1. But I do believe that a wide receiver in the first round for them is very much in the cards. Brian Thomas Jr., if he falls to the back of the first round for them, maybe, you know, someone like Xavier Legette, Devontae Walker, Troy Franklin. I think that they're going to draft another guy to try to eventually put Rashid Rice into another number 2 role, because Rashid Rice is very good, but the reason I have him lower is because I do believe he'll eventually be slotted as a number 2. Jackson Smith-Njigba at 19 and T. Higgins at 20, rounding it out. Jackson Smith-Njigba, I have him over T. Higgins because I believe in the player more. Not that I don't think T is good. I think T is a very good player. I believe in him a lot as well. But Jackson Smith-Njigba to me is in a position where there's a lot of questions about who's going to be the quarterback. Tyler Lockett seems like he's going to be there again. What happens with the production? DK Metcalf obviously still there. Listen, that's all noise to me, to be honest, because they drafted him for a reason. This guy, they want him to take over. So Tyler Lockett is on his way out. May not be this year, but it will be at some point. Jackson Smith-Njigba is still obviously very young at 22 years old. I really like Jackson Smith-Njigba. It doesn't change after a lower than expected rookie season because of quarterback play. If they upgrade a quarterback, which is entirely possible, by the way, because Mike McDonald is not committed to Geno. That's public. So all they need to do is draft a quarterback, trade up, get a nice guy. They're in business with Jackson Smith-Njigba. I'm banking on him. And then T. Higgins at 20. Look, I believe in the player a lot. Like, I just believe in the player. He is 25 years old. He's had injury issues, obviously, but the player himself is very good and very capable of big games in Dynasty. So you give him a situation where he's the number 1, which he would be on a lot of teams. And by the time you're watching this, maybe Cincinnati has traded him. He requested a trade as of Monday, which is when I'm filming this. Even if he sticks in Cincinnati for a year and then goes to sign somewhere else, T. Higgins is still going to be a very top guy in Dynasty for me because the age is there, the talent is there, and the production that we have seen in the past in spots has definitely been there. As always, let me know what you think of these rankings in the comments below and what questions you need answered for Dynasty Fantasy Football.